Lord worthy? He is such a good God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's greatly to be praised.
Yes, he is.
We give the Lord all honor and glory and praise and majesty. For it all belongs to him. To Jesus, the Christ of our God, who is the great head of the Christian church, the rock of our salvation. It is all about him. I greet you in the name of our Lord. Beloved, it's good to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To be in the house of the Lord. Thank God for you. I want you to turn with me quickly to the 32nd number of Psalms. Psalms 32. Psalms 32. In the 32nd number of Psalms, I want to point up verses 3, 4, and 5.
All right, Elder.
I want to point up verses 3, 4, and 5 if you will read along with me. When I kept silence, my bones waxed old through my roaring all day long. For day and night thy hand was heavy upon me. My moisture is turned into the drought of summer. I acknowledge my sin unto thee, and mine iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord, and thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin. Amen. I want to say a few words this morning about a weight removed.
All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Yes, sir.
About a weight removed.
Yes, sir.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Beloved, I kind of want to pick up a little bit on where I left off on last week. Last week in the book of Isaiah, we talked about in that day. And we talked briefly about how God deals with his children. How God deals with his children. And so I want to kind of pick up with that thought that we are not just anybody down here.
Right.
You're not just anybody. You're a child of the King. You're a child of the King. And for those you may be new or visiting today, those of you frequent Greater Liberty, or if you're a member here, everybody ain't a child of the King in the same way.
Yeah.
those who may be sitting back saying, well, ain't we all God's children? Yes and no.
Right.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Some are just God's children by creation. And others are God's children by regeneration. Meaning they are of the family of God. You wouldn't send your own child to hell, would you?
Yes, sir.
But you better believe God's going to be sending some folks to eternal damnation.
Yeah.
So you are not just anybody.
Amen.
You have been born again, born of the Spirit. You are a child of the true and the living God. Not some figment of folks' imagination. You are not a child because of religion or ceremony or circumstances or heritage or ethnicity. You are a child simply because God said so.
Yeah.
Simply because God said so. So with that blessed privilege comes expectation. With that blessed privilege comes expectation. And David here in this psalm, because David has been walking with the Lord for a little while. And I told you on last week, we can celebrate about in that day.
Yeah.
We can celebrate in that day because it was in that day that the Lord showed up in your life. It was in that day that he unstopped your deaf ears and allowed you to hear the sweetness of his voice.
Yeah.
It was in that day that he allowed you to taste for yourself that the Lord is good.
Yeah. Preach.
It was in that day that he removed the scales from your eyes. And in allowing you to see him, he allowed you to see part of yourself. And in seeing part of yourself, you came to realize what you deserved in your iniquity,
Yes, sir.
in your sins, in your offenses against God, in your debauchery, and he allowed you to see that he was the remedy.
Yeah.
We can rejoice in that.
Yes, sir.
David talked about the joy in verses 1 and 2 of that day.
Yes, sir.
He said, blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven and whose sin is covered. The joy that David has is just leaping off of the page. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no guile. Not only removing the sin or the penalty of sin, but he removed the guilt of it.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
David is saying there is much joy in that. But the thing is, along the journey, David is recognizing that he messed up along the way.
My God, sir.
Beloved, I don't know who I came to talk to this morning. But you believe in the Lord. You've been walking with the Lord. But there's just some things in your life that you can't get rid of. There's some areas in your life that you know God ain't pleased with. And the truth of the matter is, it's eating you alive.
Yes, sir.
It's tearing you apart. It is believed that David, in this psalm, this is one of what is grouped in the 7 penitent psalms of David. But it is believed that David was penning this psalm after his sin with Bathsheba and then killing her husband Uriah. Y'all know the story. David saw a fine woman one morning on his balcony, and he just had to have her. But she was married. David didn't care. He was the king, and what the king wanted, the king. That's all right. Take Uriah and put him on the front line of the fiercest battle. Had her husband killed and took Uriah for his own wife. Took Bathsheba for his own wife. David, his sins began to eat at him.
Yeah.
Beloved, let me tell you something. You cannot have the Spirit of God dwelling within you as a child of God and be comfortable in your mess. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. You just, sheep don't like to be dirty. A cat don't even like to be dirty. A cat will begin to even clean itself. But sheep don't like to be dirty, but no matter what you do with that hog, you can be like Charlotte and bathe it in buttermilk, get it as clean and squeaky as you want. But as soon as you let that hog loose, he's going right in the mud. The Spirit of God is not okay with mess. Beloved, David's sins began to eat at him. Because he knew what he had done. He knew his offense against God. And it started to agitate him so much that it inflicted his very body. He tells us that when I kept silent, in other words, he tried to act like it never happened. Don't that sound like us? We know it wasn't right when we did it. But we just act like it never happened. Don't say nothing. We just gonna move on. Quit bringing up old stuff. Quit bringing up the past. We done moved on from that. Time has gone on, but it hasn't been dealt with. And beloved, you cannot continue to sit up and want to call on God, want God to bless you, to show up in your life, to do in your life, and you haven't dealt with some mess in your life. So things just got to be dealt with. Some things you can't just leave it on by the wayside and hope everybody forgets about it and moves on. And the problem ain't with everybody else. What about you? I promise you I'm done in a few minutes. I promise. I just came to talk this morning. I just came to talk with you. But what about you? What? At this time, David done married Bathsheba. Uriah's dead. Bathsheba got pregnant. She lost the baby. David cried and prayed and prayed and cried. The baby died anyway. She ended up having another baby, which is Solomon. That's the heir. They done moved on, but something is wrong with David. David still ain't quite right. David was like, I got to deal with my stuff. I got to deal with my mess. I messed up, and me keeping silent about it ain't helped me. That hasn't fixed the problem. That hasn't fixed the issue. David, what did you do? How did it bother you? See, David said, my bones waxed old through my roaring all night long. David was in anguish. The conscience of his mind was afflicted so